Welcome to video podcast number 80. Actually, starting with April of 2017, I've done more than 80 video podcasts because some of my Patreon exclusive video podcasts are not numbered, and I had some other free videos that were not numbered. But all that said, yeah, of those that are numbered, this is video podcast number 80. And today is Monday, January 29th. Now, if you notice, in the last, I'd say roughly 2 months, I haven't done too many what I call angry rants and rambles. If you remember, leading up to about Thanksgiving, I did quite a few. I'd say probably 3 out of every 5 of my free videos was some type of angry rant, angry ramble, or angry admonishment. But then I would say starting with right after Thanksgiving, I kind of toned it down, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 videos. So if I gave you that preface, I think you know where I'm headed with this. This ain't going to be a fully angry rant or angry admonishment, but it's going to be at least a semi-angry rant, angry acknowledgement. And this is not really directed at what I would call my loyal followers or my Patreon subscribers, because hardly any of them are guilty of the things that I'm going to be talking about, mainly because they listen to me carefully. They've read my books or listened to my audiobooks, so they know what's up. But as far as for guys that I just witness their comments on social media and in general, whether it be here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, some of you guys be killing me, man. Y'all be killing me. First off, I want to announce 2 things. Number one, I'm going to have another Patreon exclusive live stream on Thursday. Probably the same time I did last Thursday. I had a really good Patreon exclusive live stream last Thursday. It was really good. It was, I moved it up a couple of hours. I had a good turnout. Turns out that previous live stream, something happened with the notifications. That's why I had a poor turnout a week ago Thursday. But this past Thursday, I had a real good turnout. And yeah, it was a real good live stream. So I'm going to have another one on this Thursday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's probably going to be, there's going to be 1 or 2 Thursdays per month where there will be an exception, but no less than 2 Thursdays a month, if not more. No less than 2 Thursdays a month, I'm going to have burp number 1. Oh, man. I forgot my drink. You know I got to go get my drink. Hold on a sec. Okay, I'm back. I got to drink more water. Yeah, now I told you a lot of my female listeners and viewers, they're very perceptive in terms of my physical appearance. And yeah, man, I got to get back on track, man. Do you know I've picked up half of my weight back that I lost? As you remember, in 2017, I lost a total of 40 pounds. I went from 254 to 214. Yeah, I think my heaviest weight was in March or April of 2017, and my lowest weight was in late September, early October, around the time of the 21 convention. I got down to 214. Well, guess what? I got bad news to report. Well, it's not bad news for you, it's bad news for me. I'm back up, man. This is the second time I've been back up. Yeah, I'm back up to about 235, man. Because I've been eating so many carbohydrate-rich foods, man. Now, exercise-wise, I haven't slacked off exercise-wise. I still do cardio in no less than 6 days a week. So exercise-wise and cardio-wise, I'm still on track. It's mainly in terms of food. I've been eating a lot of... Because, see, when I was losing weight, man, I wasn't eating too many foods that had high carbohydrate. Most of the foods I ate had minimal carbohydrates, particularly white flour and sugar. White flour and sugar. And in the last, starting with right before Christmas up until now, yeah, I ain't gonna even lie, man. Like right now in my refrigerator, I got a sweet potato pie. That's fucked up, ain't it? I'm type 2 and I got a fucking sweet potato pie in my fucking refrigerator, man. And yeah, like about a week ago, I ate cookies for the first time. I didn't eat cookies in I don't know how long. I ate some like shortbread cookies with pecans. So yeah, man, I done gained half of my weight I lost back. So I got to get back on track starting today. Okay, starting tomorrow. I'm probably going to still fuck up the rest of the day. But starting tomorrow, I got to get back on track with eating the right foods. So that includes drinking more water. I actually been doing a good job drinking water. Now, in terms of beverages, I haven't drank too many beverages that have sugar in them. Matter of fact, I've drank hardly any sugar-oriented beverages. So in terms of beverages, I've done well. But yeah, in terms of foods and specifically desserts, see, that's one of the things I was avoiding was desserts up until around Christmas. Christmas, that's when things get off track, man. I start eating a lot of cakes, pies, dessert items. Anyway, this show ain't about nutrition and health and fitness. I listened to this sister that somebody sent me on Twitter, sent me a video. It's a sister I'm familiar with. Me and her have had some Facebook inbox exchanges. I interviewed her husband on Blog Talk Radio. Sister named Kenya Stevens. And, man, she did a powerful video talking about why she thinks there's so much sexual harassment going on. And it's related, at least part of her video is related to a video I did last year. If you recall, I did a video. It was one of my admonishment videos, matter of fact, where I told guys that women don't owe you their sexual companionship. No woman owes you her sexual companionship. And I've had, believe it or not, some people try to challenge that. Some guys have actually tried to suggest that women do owe men their sexual companionship. No, they don't. No, they don't. With the exception of a woman who's your wife, I think a man's wife owes him her sexual companionship. So I would agree if you married, a woman owes it to you to allow you access to her sexual companionship. And second to that, if you pay a woman money, like y'all have some kind of business transactional agreement, such as you paying money to a call girl or paying money to an erotic escort, you know, it's usually mutually agreed ahead of time that if you pay a woman a certain amount of money, that she's going to give you access to her sexual companionship. What's commonly known as tricking. And you know I have my criticisms of tricking. So in those two scenarios, I would say that women owe you access to their sexual companionship. But in any other regard, women don't owe you shit. And this woman, Kenya Stevens, pointed that out in her video. She said, she basically, I'm into paraphrasing some of what she said because I don't remember her words verbatim. But at least a portion of her video, that's one of the things she said is contributing to all these charges of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct is because she said a lot of men insist on treating women like property, like they own women. like women owe it to them to allow them to grope them and have access to their bodies sexually, and they don't. And quite honestly, man, I'm in agreement with her, man. And I know I'll have some haters and critics say, oh, see, look, I knew Ellen Roger Currie was a male feminist and whatever else. But dude, I'm in agreement with her, man. I talked about that on a couple videos. I know one I want to say was the video I did called Women Will Never Be the Same as They Were Before the 1960s. I talked about that where I said, before the second wave of feminism and before the sexual revolution, a lot of men treated women like they were property, man. I mean, that's just a real deal fact. That's a real deal fact. Most men in society treated women like property, like the way they treat owning a car or owning a house. They would treat women like property that they owned and could do anything they wanted to with them. And women got tired of that shit. That's one of the things that led to the second wave of feminism. Is women got tired of being treated like property. It's like, I'm not going to go into a long segue about race relations in the United States, but I mean, if we going to keep shit real, it's just like one of the reasons why there were strained race relations during that period, starting with the end of slavery up until the 1960s and even up until today, is because you had a lot of white people. I'll say more specifically racist white people. I don't like to throw in non-racist white people with racist white people. You had a lot of racist white people whose attitude, once slavery ended, their attitude was, if I can't own you as a black person, and if I can't have my way with you and treat you however the fuck I want to treat you, then I don't have any use for you. You might as well go back to Africa. If you can't be my property, who I can do whatever the fuck I want to do with you and use you as free labor, then I don't have no need for you. You're useless to me. You might as well go back to the continent of Africa. And you notice I said continent of Africa, because there's a lot of dumb, ignorant people that treat Africa like it's a fucking country. Africa is not a country. It's a fucking continent. Like North America is a continent. South America is a continent, not a fucking country. I remember Sarah Palin, who was a vice presidential candidate. She talked about Africa once like it was a fucking country. There's multiple countries in the continent of Africa. But that's another conversation for another day. So just like you had racist white people who treated black people like they should be treated like property, and if they couldn't be treated like property, they had no use for them, keeping shit real, there's a lot of men who have that attitude towards women. The attitude towards women is, if I can't treat you like property and have my way with you, then get the fuck out of here. I don't want you around. You're useless to me. Women ain't going nowhere. Women aren't going anywhere. They're going to stay right here. In whatever country they're in. Not just the United States, but in Canada, they're not going anywhere. In Europe, they're not going anywhere. In South America, they're not going anywhere. So point number one, women don't owe you shit. And I'm going to post in the comment section, as I do a lot of relevant links, as well as I have important and relevant links to my career in the description section. And you can always offer me feedback in the comment section, but I'll be posting a link to Kenya Stevens' rant. I don't know if I want to call it rant, but yeah, some of it is a rant. It was good. I enjoyed it. I know some guys will watch her video and probably be like, oh man, fuck her, man. Fuck her, man. She just, trying to take up for women. Man, she made a lot of valid points in there. She made a lot of valid points in that video. Like I said, I interviewed her husband. Matter of fact, one of the things that's interesting about her, as you know, I am a polyamory consultant for a lot of married and unmarried couples. And Kenya Stevens and her husband, Carl E. Stevens Jr., he also goes by another name, I think Rakim Saku. They have an open marriage. Yeah, they have an open marriage. So I'm sure, what the fuck is that noise? I'm sure they get a lot of critical feedback from people. Because, you know, a lot of men aren't down with the idea of sharing pussy. Which brings me probably to my second point of this video. And this is a lot of what I'm about to say now is just going to be repetitive, but you repeat shit when you realize that a large part of your audience didn't listen to you the first time or the second time or the third time. A lot of you men are passive aggressive. You're very passive aggressive. And you know, among other factors, what contributes heavily to it, what's one thing I talk about in not one of my books, not two of my books, but as many as three of my books, other than the concept of upfront, specific, straightforward honesty, which I talk about in all my books. What's another concept I talk about in three of my books? The negative effects of what's known as the Madonna horror complex. The Madonna horror complex. A lot of you men, I can tell from your comments in social media, whether it be again on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of you men suffer from the Madonna horror complex. Even those who don't consciously realize they suffer from it, you do. Here's when you know you suffer from the effects of Dr. Sigmund Freud. He was a legendary 19th century psychiatrist. He's the one who came up with the concept of the Madonna horror complex. Here's when you know you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. Anytime you want to place women into two categories, which is monogamy-oriented good girls and promiscuous sluts, you look at women in one of those two categories, that means you suffer from the Madonna horror complex. You don't look at women as women. You look at all women pretty much in those two categories. Monogamy-oriented good girls who you feel are worthy of long-term romantic relationships and worthy of marriage, and then promiscuous sluts who you feel are only worthy of one-night stands, weekend flings, and other variations of casual sex. Well, as you know, if you've read my book, Ooh Say It Again, or listened to the audiobook version of Ooh Say It Again, you know that I actually divide women into 5 categories. I divide women into 5 categories. The last time I think I brought this up was when I did my video, again, called Women Will Never Be the Same as They Were Before the 1960s. I categorize women on a scale from 1 to 5. I call women 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s. I'll start with 5 and go down to 1. A 5 in my book, Who Said Again, a 5 is a woman that is only willing to have sex with a man who is her husband or at bare minimum her fiance. She's only willing to have sex with a man who's her husband or at minimum her fiance. If given my personal business, my mother, I would put my mother and both her sisters in that category. And a lot of women from their generation were in that category. My mother was a 5. My mother only had sex with my father. That's the only man literally in her entire life she had sex with. And her 2 sisters, they only had sex with their husbands. And again, not only within my own family, but a lot of women in my mother and grandmother's generation were 5s. A lot of women in my mother and grandmother's generation were 5s. That's when 5s were prevalent. Prior to the 1960s and definitely prior to the 1950s, I would say, argue that over 50% of women in society were 5s. Most women were 5s. But that's what a 5 is. That's a woman who's only willing to have sex with a man who's her husband or at bare minimum her fiance. Next category of women is a 4. A 4 is a woman that is highly prefers to have sex with a man who's her husband, her fiance, or at minimum her long-term boyfriend, but every blue moon, occasionally, every blue moon, she will go indulge in some variation of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. That's a 4. A 4 is a woman who highly prefers to only have sex with a man who's her husband, her fiance, or a long-term boyfriend, but every blue moon, occasionally, she will indulge in casual sex. I would say, even prior to 1960, you had a small percentage of women that were 4s. Even though the lack of birth control didn't really lend itself to women being 4s. But you had a few 4s. Not many. You had a certain percentage of women that were 4s. Next category down is 3. A 3, based on the description in my book, Who Said Again, a 3 is a woman who publicly is going to always give a man the impression that she's a 4 or a 5. A 4 or a 5, but in reality, she engages in some form of short-term and or non-monogamous sex semi-regularly. That's a 3. A 3 is a woman that when she first meets you, and just to the general public, period, she's going to always give men in the general public the impression that she's a 4 or a 5, but behind closed doors, she indulges in casual sex, non-monogamous casual sex, semi-regularly. A 2 is a woman that's going to, similar to the 3, a 2 is a woman that's going to always give you the impression that she's a 4. She's going to publicly and initially always give you the impression that she's a 4, but behind closed doors, she's kinky and promiscuous as hell. And she indulges in casual sex on a regular basis. She just doesn't like being called a slut or a whore, so she tries to hide that. So publicly, she's always going to try to give you the impression that she's a 4, but privately, she's as kinky and promiscuous as any porn star. And a 1 is a woman who's very open with the fact that she's a combination of kinky and promiscuous and or polyamorous. She doesn't try to hide or deny the fact that she regularly engages in short-term and or non-monogamous sex with men. She don't give a fuck if people pass judgment on her or label her a slut or a whore. She don't give a fuck. And I would say even before the 1960s, you had women who were 1s. You had women who were 1s. It was a small percentage, again, because birth control didn't lend itself to women being 1s. But I'll say this in simple terms. Even before the second wave of feminism and the sexual revolution, you had most women, I would say the vast majority of women in society were 5s, and you had a smaller percentage of women that were 1s and 4s. 1s and 4s. The 2s and 3s are the women who were virtually non-existent before the 1960s, was your 2s and 3s. You didn't really have those women. I would say less than 1% of the women in society were 2s and 3s. Most women were 5s, and again, second to 5s, you had a certain small percentage of women that were 1s and 4s. Starting with the late 60s, early to mid 70s, that's when 2s and 3s became more prominent. Women who were 2s and 3s. And what I argued in my previous video called Women Will Never Be the Same Before 1960 is that that's the women that most men can't handle. I would say out of the 5 categories of women I described in my book, Who Said Again, I would say the 2 categories that frustrate men the most is the 2s and the 3s. Most men don't want to deal with 2s and 3s. I'm going to tell you the reason why. Because no man wants to make a woman who's a 2 his long-term girlfriend or his wife only to find out later that she done fucked half his neighborhood. Same with a 3. Most men don't want to make a woman their long-term girlfriend or wife only to find out later that that woman, fucked half of a college fraternity when she was in college. Why? Because men are fucking judgmental as fuck. And men are sexually hypocritical as fuck. 2 things I talk about also in my book, Ooh Say It Again. Men are judgmental as fuck. And that's interesting. This is very interesting. I'm talking about my book, Ooh Say It Again. And as you can tell, I'm looking at notifications. A good buddy of mine, I won't say his name, but a good buddy of mine just wrote me an inbox message on Facebook, and I can see the preview of it. As I'm talking, he wrote me a note saying that of all my books, he thinks Ooh Say It Again has affected his thinking the most. He said, of all my books, he just wrote me while I was talking, he said, of all your books, Ooh Say It Again has most profoundly changed my way of thinking. Yeah, but one of the things I point out, matter of fact, I always like to mention, that's actually my best-selling audiobook, and it has been ever since it came out. It's funny, and the reason I mention that is because most people tend to assume, because Mode 1 is my most, you could say, most popular book or most well-known book, most people tend to assume that Mode 1 is my best-selling ebook, my best-selling paperback, and my best-selling audiobook, but it's actually not. Now, Ooh Say It Again is my best-selling audiobook. Mode 1 is my best-selling ebook, and I have to double check on what's currently my best-selling paperback. It might be Mode 1 again, but for most of the latter half of 2017, the Beta Male Revolution was actually my best-selling paperback. So I had 3 different books that were bestsellers in 3 different categories. But yeah, one of the things I emphasize in Ooh Say It Again, man, one thing I'm very harshly critical of men. I'm harshly critical of men who are negatively affected by Dr. Sigmund Freud's Madonna horror complex. I'm critical of how judgmental men are, how indiscreet they are, and hypocritical they are. I give you an example of being hypocritical. Like, I read a comment just the other day where a guy, I want to say it was on Facebook, was criticizing women for sowing their oats before marriage, but yet he was endorsing the idea of men sowing their oats. What kind of shit is that? What kind of shit is that? That is so blatantly hypocritical, it ain't even funny. How you gonna say that men should have the right to sow their oats prior to getting married, but women shouldn't? I'm sorry, dude. That's just blatant. I can't be that blatantly hypocritical. Y'all, if y'all choose to be that way, more power to you. But I can't be that way, man. I refuse to be that way. I refuse to be just fucking hypocritical like that. See, and again, this is what it causes a lot of you men. This is what I see in a lot of men today. And I'm going to loosely generalize and say particularly younger men, but some older men too. You men are passive aggressive. You men are passive aggressive. What I mean by that is this is what you do. Using my number system of describing women, this is what a lot of men do. Y'all, when y'all first meet women, y'all treat them like either a 4 or a 5. Y'all treat them with the respect of a 4 or a 5. But then when you find out that they're a little bit more kinky than you would like them to be, or they've been a little bit more promiscuous and or polyamorous in their past than you would have preferred them to be, now all of a sudden they're a no-good slut. You go from treating women like queens and princesses to treating them like no-good sluts, which is passive-aggressive. You put women on a pedestal to begin with, The women who you look at as girlfriend material or future wife material. But then once you find out information that they fucked a higher number of guys than you wanted them to fuck, whether that be 5 guys, 10 guys, 15 guys, 20 guys, 50 guys, 100 guys, all of a sudden she's a no good slut. No, the woman ain't the problem. You the motherfucking problem. You the motherfucking problem with your judgmental, hypocritical ass. You the motherfucking problem. Your boy, Alan Roger Currie here, man, I've tried to lay it out to you as plain as I could do it, but y'all still don't want to listen. Arguably my most profound video to date was my video called The Myth of the Prudish and Monogamy-Oriented Good Girl. I had a lot of men that wrote me and said that single video podcast changed their whole perspective on women. Literally. I had quite a few men. Matter of fact, to this day, that's the most, in terms of a combination of public feedback, like feedback in my comment section, combined with feedback I received from via email or Facebook inbox message, that still remains the most feedback I've gotten for any single video I've ever done. Is the video I did called The Myth of the Prudish and Monogamy-Oriented Good Girl. And I'm not going to rehash everything I said in that video, but I'll just say this, man. And you've heard me say this phrase a bunch of times. Women going to fuck who they want to fuck. Do you understand that? I mean, seriously. Do you guys listening to me right now understand that? Women are going to fuck who they want to fuck. What do I mean when I say that? What that means is, even the women you meet that you think and assume, keyword assume, you know what they say about assuming? Even the women you meet that you assume are these innocent, wholesome, prudish or semi-prudish, monogamy-oriented good girl types, if you put even those women in a room with a guy who they find sexy, seductive, masculine, and erotically dominant, 9 times out of 10, they're going to give the pussy to that motherfucker. They're going to suck his dick or get a pussy to that motherfucker. Why do you think I was able to fuck so many women who were married, engaged to be married, or had long-term boyfriends? Something I've had guys criticize me for. Why do you think I was able to do that? I've told y'all a number of times, man, between the age of roughly 17 and the age of 38, 39, man, I had no less than 3 dozen women I had sex with that were either married, engaged to be married, or had a long-term boyfriend at the time. It's like this movie I watched called, a Spike Lee movie called Girl 6. Now, overall, it wasn't that great of a movie, but it had a line in that movie that I just loved. It had this, at least one line in that movie that's always stuck out with me because it's so true. And I've had women echo this line that this woman said. The woman, I think the actress name is Teresa Randall. I'll put a link to the movie in the comment section. But in the movie, it's about this woman who's an aspiring actress. And you know, when you're an aspiring actor or actress or aspiring screenwriter like I was in Hollywood, a lot of times you struggle financially. You struggle. You know, I mentioned I was homeless 3 times when I lived in Los Angeles. Not for long. I think twice for about roughly 24 hours and another time for about maybe 36 to 48 hours. But yeah, I was homeless 3 times when I lived in LA. So this woman, she's struggling to make ends meet. And to make ends meet, she becomes a phone sex operator. And she finds that as a result of becoming a phone sex operator, she becomes more uninhibited in her thoughts and fantasies. She becomes much more uninhibited, i.e. kinky, much more sexually liberated. And anyway, there's one scene where she runs into her ex-boyfriend played by the actor Isaiah Washington. I think they run into each other in, I want to say, a drugstore. And they get to talking, and she's sharing with him how she's changed sexually since she became a phone sex operator. And at one point he says, man, that's a trip. I dated you for like 3 years, and I never knew you was a kinky freak. And here's what she says, the key line. She says, that's because you didn't know how to bring that side out of me. Let me repeat that. She said, that's because you didn't know how to bring that side out of me. Marinate on that for a few seconds. That's why I find it laughable. I find it amusing when I read men make comments where they try to delineate women into good girls and sluts. Good girls and sluts. All women want some dick, dog. Unless they have some kind of traumatic experience like they were raped or sexually molested as a child or something. All women want some dick. They may not want your dick. But trust me, they want some dick. Why do you think I'm in business? Or at least part of the reason why I'm in business. I teach men how to bring that side, the woman's, for lack of a better way of putting it, the woman's whole side, her slut side out. All women got it, man. It ain't that women are in two groups. It ain't that women are in the good girl group or the women are in the slut group. The reality of women is that women have, just like all human beings, they got variations of their personality. They got two sides of the same coin. Women have a good girl side with certain motherfuckers, and they know how to bring out and unleash their slutty side with other motherfuckers. Like, I remember last year, I kind of got into it with a couple of podcast hosts who were trying to suggest that women are simply not as interested in sex, in engaging in sex, as men are. That's because those men were saying that because they don't know how to bring out a woman's highly sexual side. That's why those podcast hosts were saying that shit. Because I ain't never had no problems with women. I've talked about this going back to my blog talk radio days. Do you know just about every woman I've ever been in a long-term relationship with wanted to fuck more than I did? And I love to fuck. But I can honestly say just about every long-term girlfriend I've ever had or long-term non-monogamous lover I've ever had, they wanted to fuck an average of twice as much as I did. I've had women wake me up in the middle of the night, bugging the shit out of me that they wanted some more dick. I don't think I've ever dated a woman that didn't want to fuck as much as I did. Not long term. I've dealt with a handful of women that I might have had, like, I don't know, maybe a weekend fling with or something real short term, that I would say my libido was higher than their libido. But almost every woman I've been in a long-term relationship with, they wanted to fuck more than I did. Women are horny as hell. Here's the difference, and I've talked about this before. See, women have a different totem pole, as I like to call it in my Mode 1 audiobook. There's one chapter, if you got my journal notes for my Mode 1 audiobook, you'll see that there's one chapter, I think it's chapter 7. I list these totem poles, and I got a lot of good feedback on those. Totem poles. And I basically highlight that, see, here's the difference between men, in simple terms, between men and women's totem, what I call their totem pole of priorities for companionship. I'll start with men. The largest percentage of women for men is women that we want to fuck, but we don't want to be in a relationship with. That's our largest percentage. That's you can say at the top of our totem pole, is women that we want to fuck, but we don't want to be in a long-term relationship with or don't want to marry. That's at the top of our totem pole. Second, a smaller percentage of women that we run across would be women that we are interested in being in a long-term relationship with or being married to. And then the lowest percentage of women that we want to interact with is women just for platonic friendship, strictly for their non-sexual companionship. That's the lowest percentage for most men. So to repeat, for men, here's our totem pole. Women that we want to have casual sex with, then women we want to date and potentially marry, and then women we want to just be friends with. Usually the only women we're just cool with being just friends with is women we're just totally, completely unattracted to physically. They just don't do anything for us physically. The only thing that's similar about women's totem pole is that middle category. The other two categories for women is flipped. Here's the totem pole for women. Their largest percentage of men that women gravitate towards is men that they just want to have a non-sexual, non-physical, purely platonic friendship with. That's their top priority. That's their largest percentage of men. Is men that they just want to share their company for the sake of being flattered, for the sake of being entertained, and for the sake of that guy spending some money on them. That's their highest percentage of men. Their second highest percentage of men is men that they want to be in a serious relationship with and potentially marry. And then their lowest percentage of men is men that they just want to fuck. What I call the total alpha male. That's what I call. A total alpha male is to a woman what the kinky slut is to a man. Those are the men that they just want to fuck to be fucking. Just for some good dick. Okay? You understand that? So it's not that women don't want to fuck. It's not that women don't enjoy sex and don't want sex. It's that women have a much smaller percentage of men who they want to fuck just to be fucking. When it comes to men that they want to fuck just to be fucking, their percentage of men is very small. Whereas men's percentage of women is very large. Most men, just about everyone we meet that we find reasonably physically attractive, we'll fuck them at least 1 to 3 times. We'll fuck them at least 1 to 3 times. Women aren't like that. They don't want to fuck every single guy that's reasonably, that they think is reasonably handsome. There's only a small percentage of guys that women want to just fuck just to be fucking. You understand that? Get it, got it, good. And I heard a podcast host trying to rip me off on that. That's an Alan Roger Currie signature phrase. Get it, got it, good. I've been saying that since Blog Talk Radio. I can't remember who it is, and if I did remember, I probably wouldn't call out their name. But I was listening to somebody else's podcast within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they said the same thing. They said, get it, got it, good. I was like, man, I ought to charge them with copyright infringement for that shit. That's an Alan Roger Currie phrase, man. I've been saying that since like 2008 on Blog Talk Radio. Get it, got it, good. Some other motherfuckers gonna try to rip off my shit. I guess they say imitation is the highest form of flattery. Motherfuckers love to try to rip off my signature phrases and shit. But yeah, man. The Madonna Horn Complex is fucking a lot of you guys up, man, because, and again, the hypocrisy of men. There are a lot of men, again, who want to put women in these 2 convenient categories, which is basically monogamy-oriented good girls or promiscuous sluts. But yet, a lot of these same men, a lot of you same men will criticize women for doing the same exact thing. Y'all criticize women for doing the same exact thing. And that's related to the article I wrote today for the Negro Manosphere. Matter of fact, technically, that's related to my last 2 Negro Manosphere articles. Because if you remember my Negro Manosphere article from last Monday, I wrote an article about lessons to be learned from the 1999 romantic comedy and drama, The Best Man. If you watch that movie, that was the problem with Morris Chestnut's character. Morris Chestnut plays this college football star who later becomes an NFL football star. And his main issue was he loved cheating on his girlfriend, who was later his fiancée and later his wife. But the moment he found out his girlfriend, fiancée, wife cheated on him with one of his best friends, he couldn't handle that shit. And the most powerful scene in that movie, the movie was probably 2/3 of comedy and 1/3 of drama. But I'll tell you one of the most powerful, dramatic scenes in that movie. And this is why I love Terrence Howard's character in that movie. His name was Quentin. Quentin was similar to me. I would almost compare myself to Quentin in that movie. Because Quentin, they playing cards or something at the table. It's Morris Chestnut's character, Tay Day's character, Harold Perrineau's character, and Terrence Howard's character. They playing cards. And they get discussing women, sex, and monogamy. And I can't remember all the dialogue that went down, but Morris Chestnut's character was basically saying that he knew for a fact that his fiance had never had any dick other than his. Like, he was like certain of that. And Terrence Howard just looks at him like, oh, really? So I'm paraphrasing this dialogue. I don't remember the exact dialogue, but essentially, Terrence Howard was like, so you just know your fiance is a strictly monogamous good girl, huh? And Morris Chestnut like, you goddamn right I do. Her pussy wraps around my dick like a glove. I know she ain't had another motherfucker in that pussy. She in love with me, and she would never step out on me. And Terrence Howard's like, is that right? And he basically goes on to say, again, I don't remember the exact dialogue, but he basically goes on to say, man, ain't no woman strictly monogamous. If women want some dick, they gonna get some dick. And what have I always told you guys? I always say women gonna fuck who they want to fuck. And that's essentially what Terrence Howard in that scene tells Morris Chestnut. He basically tells Morris Chestnut's character, man, you fooling yourself if you think your fiance ain't never stepped out on you. As many times as you done stepped out on her. You fooling your fucking self. And that's what I'm saying to all you motherfuckers out there. All you motherfuckers who still believe in this good girl bullshit. Ain't no motherfucking good girls in this day and age. Are you serious? You gotta be a naive, delusional motherfucker to think that. You don't think all the women I fucked who were married, you don't think their husbands didn't think they were good girls? All the women I fucked who were engaged to be married, you don't think their fiancés didn't think they were good girls? All the women I fucked who had boyfriends, you don't think their boyfriends didn't think they were good girls? All the stories I've told you, I had one woman sucking my dick while her husband was upstairs cooking dinner. Marinate on that shit. Better wake the fuck up, man. You got the birth control pill, abortions legalized. Shit, I would argue that less than 5% of women in society today are fives. And I'm being generous. On that scale from 1 to 5 I listed in my book, Who Said Again, I would say less than 5% of women in society today are fives. The vast majority of women in society are 2s, 3s, and 4s. 2s, 3s, and 4s. With even more emphasis on 2s and 3s. Y'all better accept that. Deal with that shit. Y'all motherfuckers out here being promiscuous, but you criticizing women for being promiscuous. Y'all motherfuckers out here want to sow your oats prior to marriage, but you want to bash women for doing the fucking same exact thing. You guys want to put women in the category of good girl and slut, but you don't want women having their own categories of men, which is alpha male and beta male, or a blend of both. Man, wake the fuck up, man. And you wonder why you always frustrated, why you always got to take to social media to vent. You don't see this motherfucker venting about women, because I understand women, man. You don't see pimps going around venting about women, because I said it many times, man, most pimps, man, they not only understand women's true sexual nature, they find a way to profit from that shit. Pimps were probably the first guys who knew, man, there wasn't no such thing as no motherfucking good girl. Like, I remember I did this interview with this guy on Blog Talk Radio. He had studied pimps. And he wrote this book. I think that was financed by Tariq Nasheed. I can't remember the name of the book. If I find out, I'll put the link in the comment section. But I did this guy was like a college professor. He got like a PhD. Intelligent dude. And he spent a lot of time in, I want to say, the 1960s and 1970s just shadowing pimps and interviewing them and finding out, about their mindset and their attitude. And one of the things he said in his book and in the interview I had with him is he said one of the biggest misconceptions that people had, well, he highlighted two major misconceptions that people had of pimps. One was that pimps force women to be their whores. He said that is not true. He said, matter of fact, most high-quality pimps look down on low-quality pimps who were guilty of doing that. He said most of what was considered your high-quality pimps, they never forced women to be their whores. They never forced women to be their whores. Women chose to be their whores. They didn't force women. They didn't physically abuse women and force women to be their whores. He said that was only low-quality pimps who did that type of shit. All the high-quality pimps, they never forced women to be their whores. So that was number one misconception. And the second misconception about pimps related to what I was just talking about a few minutes ago, he said a lot of people had this impression that the only women who became whores to pimps were women who came from a low socioeconomic family, or a woman who was sexually abused by a father, stepfather, or a woman who had an alcohol or drug addiction. But he said, man, a lot of women who were college educated, women who had college degrees, came from a middle class background, became whores to some of these pimps. What does that tell you? What does that tell you when you got a woman who's in possession of a college degree, came from a two-parent home, middle-class family background with no history of sexual molestation or sexual abuse, wanting to become a whore, a pimp's whore? What does that tell you about women? Did you know the term nymphomaniac specifically applies to women? Did you know that? If you don't, you need to recognize that. Bottom line, man, quit all this passive-aggressive behavior, man. Quit all this passive-aggressive shit. Instead of starting out treating a woman like a 5 and then weeks or months later treating her like a 1, you need to stay in the 3 area. You need to stay at an even keel instead of going up and then down. A lot of you guys, that's what y'all do. Y'all put women on a pedestal, and then when they disappoint you with their bad behavior, their bad sexual behavior, all of a sudden they're no good slut, no good cunt. And I'm saying that that's bullshit. Women are sexual creatures. They're fucking human beings, man. Any human being is a sexual creature. Just because they don't want to fuck you, they don't want your dick, doesn't mean they're not a sexual creature. Women don't owe you shit, man. And you don't owe them shit. Just like they don't owe you access to their sexual companionship, you don't owe a woman access to your non-sexual companionship. Quit acting like you do. Quit being a fucking chump. Quit giving women free access to your non-sexual companionship and free access to your wallet and your financial resources and material possessions. Quit doing that shit, man. Purge that nice guyness out of you. That was the message of my last Patreon exclusive. I ain't gonna go into detail because you need to be a Patreon subscriber. But that was the main message. You gotta purge that whole nice guy-itis out of you. Fuck that shit, man. Quit being passive-aggressive, man. Treat women like the sexual creatures that they are. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that women are sexual creatures. It's your judgments that make you believe that it's a bad thing that women are highly sexual and want to have sex with someone other than a husband. Marriage is bullshit, man. And more specifically, the idea of strictly monogamous marriage is bullshit. It's a social construct that has failed and failed miserably. Believe that shit. On that note, Alan Roger Currie is out. Patreon exclusive live stream on Thursday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern, a gentleman I met at the 21 convention named Richard Cooper is going to be interviewing me on his channel at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern on Friday. So stay tuned for that. Until then, I'll talk to you. Mode 1, baby. Let go of that passive aggressive behavior. Let go of that highly judgmental behavior. Let go of that sexually hypocritical behavior. You want to fuck, women want to fuck. Enjoy their access to their sexual companionship while they give it to you. And once it's over, leave them the fuck alone. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.